This is Marketing Jam, a show featuring the brightest minds in marketing.
Brought to you by Canada Post. Head to canadapost.ca/insight podcast for ideas to add value to your marketing.
Thanks everyone for joining us on Marketing Jam. I'm really excited because we have a hometown hero. Brian is right from our backyard, so right here in Vancouver. Brian is Skyping in, which is awesome, and he is joining us for today. So Brian, we start sessions by sharing where your origin story came from. Much like every great superhero like Spider-Man, Superman has an origin story. Brian, tell us yours.
Yeah, well, I was in a McDonald's drive-through not far from my office. I was in Kerrisdale here in Vancouver. I was looking for a way to pay for college. I actually was one course short of graduation from high school. I talked my way into college, but had to find a way to pay for it. And there I was, McDonald's drive-through, beat up old pickup truck with plywood side panels built up on the box. And I looked at the truck and I went, there's my idea. Rather than get out there and find a job, I started my own. Within a week, I bought a pickup truck. It was the company was called the Rubbish Boys, which was really just me, but wanted to sound like it was something bigger.
Yeah.
And off I went to haul junk. I'd drive down alleys, laneways, introduce myself as Brian from the Rubbish Boys, offer to cart away their junk for a fee. And that basic business model funded my college education. But ironically, I was learning much more about business, running a business, more than studying in school, and made the bold decision to drop out. And I say bold decision because my father is a liver transplant surgeon, someone who really puts high value on education. And then there's me saying, hey, Dad, your oldest son is leaving school to become a full-time junk man. He thought I was nuts, but I don't know, a decade or so later, he certainly hopped on the bandwagon and said, you know what, good work, Brian, I'm proud of you.
That's really good. And tell me about that moment when your dad came to you. Was it like, were you together physically? Did he call you? What was that moment like when he said, I'm proud of you, Brian?
Yeah, we were actually so this would have been about 5 or 6 years ago. I was at the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. Mm-hmm. I was a finalist. There were about 7 or 8 of us. And my father showed up, and I was wearing a tux, as all the finalists were. And my dad shows up in a tux. And I'm like, Dad, you're not up for an award. And he's like, well, you are. And he was proud. So he's sitting beside me. I get up. I find out that I win my category as Entrepreneur of the Year. And my dad just looks over and kind of nudges me and says, yeah, proud of you, Brian. You know, it took a long time for him to say that. But, you know, he, again, values education. And I think he realized that he had a son who was learning, but just in a different way. Okay. You want to be a doctor like my dad, clearly you've got to go to university and do years of it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't think you really learn in college or university. You get out there and you figure it out on the streets. You learn, you make mistakes. I wrote a book recently called WTF, Willing to Fail, which really memoirs all the mistakes that I made as an entrepreneur and all the great learning I had. You can't grow as an entrepreneur and be successful without a mandatory ingredient, which is failure.
So I meet and we interview a lot of entrepreneurs and brands on this show, and not many of them are willing to share their failures or their mistakes. What was the motivation to actually go there, to an area that can be very vulnerable and transparent?
Yeah, I think vulnerability is something that people are getting a little more accustomed to. They're realizing that it takes guts. You got to be bold to own up and admit a failure. But by admitting a failure and saying, hey, this is what I learned, that's powerful. By writing a book about my failures, by talking about my failures, it allows me to constantly reflect on all of the gifts that I've received along the way, because I see failure as a gift. In 1994, 5 years into my business, I had 11 employees. We were about $500,000 in revenue. And I made a tough decision. I brought all my employees in. They say one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. I probably had 9 bad apples. And I brought them in and said, guys, I'm sorry, I'm firing the entire company. And I let 11 people go. Now, they weren't the clean-cut, friendly, happy customer service professionals that I had envisioned for my brand to get to the next level. But it was the right thing for me because I wasn't having fun in my business. And so what a gift to learn that lesson, because today we talk about this company is all about people, finding the right people and treating them right. And we are very slow to hire, very quick to fire if we've got the wrong people. And that stuck with us. You've got a company of great people keep it great by getting the wrong ones out and don't let the wrong ones in.
So you made a pretty courageous decision, and even just you were very courageous in writing that book, I have to say. When you look for courage, when you look for something to fill you up to be courageous, where do you go? What's your source of inspiration, or where's your well, Brian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a great support network of family and friends, but when I make a mistake, if I've got a problem, I'll pick up the phone and try and call someone who I know has solved that same problem. So it could be Greg Clark, who was the founder of College Pro Painters. Yep. And I remember I was on the edge of losing my business. I had made a massive mistake recruiting the wrong COO. And I got on the phone and I called Greg. And he said, oh, yeah, I've done what you've done. I've been there. I've been through it. Here's what I did to fix it. And he took time out of his busy schedule to coach me through it, take several phone calls. So failure requires courage to get out of it. But why not take shortcuts? Why not reach out to people who have made the mistakes you've just made? History repeats itself. I mean, I hope I don't repeat all my mistakes, but I know the mistakes I made, others have made, and they've learned from. Why not learn from those people so I don't have to make the same hard mistakes the hard way?
Yeah. Now, are you on the opposite? Are you getting those calls now from young entrepreneurs calling and asking for advice?
100%. I mean, I talk to people weekly. I love to, when I'm in my car, use my drive time to be efficient. And if I can help people out, I'll take calls and call people back and try and coach them through some of the same learnings or mistakes that they're making that I've already fixed. And often they'll make new mistakes that I've never encountered, but I can tell them where to turn, someone else to talk to, or I get to learn from some of the mistakes they made.
Cool. So, Brian, I need to ask, are you an Android or an iPhone guy?
What's an Android?
Oh,
I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I'm an iPhone guy for sure.
Okay.
Apple is a brand that I admire.
Okay.
I think they've done a great job with usability, so I'm an iPhone guy.
And do you have apps that you use on the daily, both on a personal and professional basis?
Yeah, I go through different cycles where I use some apps more than others, but of course my, one of my favorites is Instagram. I don't love social media, but I love the simplicity of Instagram and that it's all visual and I don't have to read anything.
Yeah.
I've got an app called Strive, which is a daily checklist that I use to make sure that, what are my key success factors in a day and how do I make sure that I stick to them? So it's a nice little checklist to say, hey, you did 7 of your 10 key things today. Right now I'm using a sleep tracker, sleep cycle. And I love that you just put it beside your bed and it tells you how much sleep you get and the quality of your sleep. So that's been kind of fun. And then just about all my notes are digital. I rarely write things down, which I know there's good reasons to be creative and use pen to paper. But I usually use my notes app as a place to keep and search for useful thoughts, ideas, and to-do lists.
Okay. So speaking of Instagram, that's actually where you and I first connected. Was I reached out over? I slid into your DMs, and which was great. And you responded right away, which I thought was really great. And years ago, 1-800-GOT-JUNK, one of the franchises in Vancouver, had an Instagram account where they would post random junk they found, and if you messaged or like you commented below, you could win that junk. They stopped it eventually because I can probably imagine it got weird because some people were like, "Why are you giving away my old clock?" But it was one of the coolest Instagram accounts I followed for a while. Was one of your franchises? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Richard Bender, our Vancouver franchise owner, and hey, you get some weird stuff. Why not give it away? I mean, I'm a big fan of giving stuff away. Somebody gave me a basketball signed by Magic Johnson recently at a conference I was at and I spoke at, and they gave this to me, and I was like, I couldn't read the signature. I didn't know who it was from. I posted it on Instagram and said, does anyone know who this is? Yeah. And I got a whole bunch of people back saying it was Magic Johnson. And I said, okay, well, I'm not a big basketball guy. I'd love to give it away to someone who's a big fan. And it's amazing the engagement you can get on Instagram just from a simple basketball.
Yeah. It's actually how I first heard about 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Someone tagged me in a picture because I was looking for an old clock, one of those grandfather clocks, and someone tagged me in it because it was guy found it in the junk and then I've since hired your company a couple times to remove some junk from my yard. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Glad you're a customer, not just an interviewer.
No, for sure. And from the position you stand, like I feel like you've seen trends, like you've seen, pre big time internet, like You've been on radio. You've done the world of marketing. What are some of the trends you're seeing right now in the position you're in when it comes to marketing in general? Like, are you seeing more people going to radio, or are you seeing people going more print? Like, what are you seeing from your vantage point?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that people are spending more time on podcasts than they are radio. People are out going for a walk, a jog, whatever it is, and they put in their AirPods and pull up a podcast. I mean, I'm starting to do it myself because I can pick and choose exactly what I want to listen to. I'm attempting to learn Italian right now, so I'm listening to some Italian podcasts. And so I find that definitely that seems to be beating out radio. I think radio is a means for an older generation that I don't know the stats on it and whether or not it's dying. I hope it's not, because we spend millions of dollars a year on radio advertising. Yeah. I also think there's a trend, not necessarily marketing, but from a customer service trend, people want connection. We talked about Instagram, and you can't really connect over Instagram. You can meet people, you can DM someone, you can look at their cool photos and stalk their life. But I think people want face-to-face connection even more. I think people are hungry for it. And I think from a customer service standpoint, I think people are getting away from just doing everything digitally. You order on Amazon, and I love Amazon Prime, but when their deliverers come to the door, they knock on the door, they often don't even say they're from Amazon. They just give you a package. They're not uniformed. Their van isn't logoed. And so I think there's this level of, in customer experience, how do we become more personalized? How do we have one-to-one marketing and connections with people in a bigger way? And that's a trend we're trying to take advantage of. Clearly, all of our brands under the O2E brands umbrella, O2E stands for Ordinary to Exceptional. They're all about personal experiences, whether it's going in with Wow and Day painting someone's home, or Shack Shine, where we do their windows, gutters, power washing. It's about real, smiley, happy people you can trust coming into the home and doing a great job.
Wow, that's amazing. Where do you go for inspiration, whether it's like books or podcasts that you're listening to these days, or magazines? What are kind of some of the sources you go to for ideas?
Yeah, I'm loving certain podcasts. Again, if I'm focused on business, I love Guy Raz, his podcast, How I Built This, which we happen to have been on, which was awesome. I would have renamed our episode How We Built This, because it's really a bunch of great people working hard together to build something special. But he picks such fantastic entrepreneurs. He was in town recently for the TED conference, which I was at. Great source of inspiration. 145, it was, different speakers. But I got to go for a nice jog on the seawall with Guy Raz in the morning, one morning before TED. And I just love his stories. He's a passionate storyteller who's interviewed over 200 founders, and that's fun. And then inspirational places. I happen to live about 6 or 7 blocks away from a forest, and I love just going into the forest and walking, thinking, connecting with nature. I find some of my best ideas either come in the shower or they come in the forest. I love to find those moments of inspiration.
That's really cool. And it's great you're in Vancouver we not only are we the host of TED, but we also have a lot of forests.
Host of TED, a lot of forests, a lot of water, a lot of mountains. Love to ski. So Whistler, I'm a huge Whistler fan, and lucky enough to have a place up there that we go to most weekends, and love to ski with the family.
Wow. Now, if you had the moment to borrow the car that could take people back to the future and go back in time, and you could speak to your younger self, what's some advice you'd give a young Brian?
Yeah, it's a question I get asked often, and it's a simple one. I'd say to the younger Brian, you're going to make mistakes. Take every failure, every mistake, and ask yourself, what's one good thing that will potentially come from that fall, from that fail? And that's, as a kid, or as a teenager, or as someone in my 20s, if I look back to that time, you have an ego and you don't want to fail. You want everything to be instant. You want to succeed. You want it to be easy. That's not life. That's not the way it works. When we fail and learn from that, that allows us to take the next step and get to a bigger level. A couple of times I've almost bankrupted my business. Plenty of times I've had the wrong hires that I've had to fire. I had the wrong COO at one point who had built a company where they had 30,000 employees beneath them. I brought them into my tiny little business, and we almost bankrupted the thing. So you make mistakes, but it's all about trusting that those mistakes serve a purpose. They are a gift. and figure out what you can learn from it and get better at as a result.
So one of the things that I really admire about your company and you is that you have embraced public relations and earned media like no other brand I've seen. And why don't you explain why, and maybe what has that meant to you, and what do you see the role of earned media for other brands going forward?
Yeah, I think why not get out there in this storytelling age? And clearly we're in the storytelling age. I mean, you're interviewing me, I'm telling stories. Anyone else who's listening to any podcast, it's about stories. The news, social media, everything. We are telling more stories than ever through Instagram and Facebook. Why not get out there and take advantage of free press and tell stories? Why not get out there and pick up the phone and call some digital network or some traditional network and say, I got an awesome story idea for you, and pitch them the story, and you never know what might happen. We don't win every pitch by any means, but the amount of press, as you recognize, that we get, it's just from getting out there and paying attention to what opportunities for stories are there that we can be telling, and cold call pitching half these people. And, Guy Raz, for example, from How I Built This, it's one of the biggest podcasts we've ever been on. And that was just from a pitch of calling him 3 times and saying, we think we'd make a great story or a great episode for you. What do you think? And again, it took 3 times. Most people would give up after the first no. We persisted.
And what do you think the difference is between someone that maybe someone that you were hiring or someone on your team that's willing to persist and someone who gives up? What do you think what's in there?
I think it's someone who can persist and have the tenacity is someone who understands that when they get a no, it's an opportunity to get closer to a yes. Not necessarily with that person, but here's an example. I know we had a guy, Tyler, who was our first PR hire, and I talk about him in our book, WTF. And Tyler used to pitch, and he'd call up someone and say, I got a story idea for you. And they'd say, no, we're not really interested. And he'd say, well, what would make it a great story? What's missing? And he'd ask questions. And those answers wouldn't necessarily get him success with that person, but they'd get him success with the next person or the person after that. So it's just, everything's a journey. And I think that people give up on things way too soon. When we tried to get our 1-800-GOT-JUNK phone number, I had to make 60 phone calls to all sorts of different people to track down how to get this phone number. What if I had given up on phone call number 59? You and I wouldn't be talking today.
Yeah. The other thing I want to ask you about is there's this term called genius, right? And we know it mostly if you're an Apple, user and you've been to an Apple store and they have a genius bar, right? And the history of that term genius comes from the genie, right? So it used to be people who were like prophetic and could hear voices and could see things that others couldn't. So there's this quote where it's like, someone who is excellent can hit the bullseye every time, but someone who's a genius hits a target that no one else has ever seen. And there's something that I've seen with you where it's like you have this genius piece where you saw something that no one else ever saw. And where do you think that comes from? Like, is it from the genie? Is it from a spirit? Or was it just something that you think you were just dumb luck that you were in the McDonald's drive-thru?
Yeah, I don't think it was dumb luck. I mean, I think that we get a little bit of luck for sure in everything we do. But I think, first of all, I think everybody's a genius. Everyone has genius within them. I think we've all got these gifts. And it's just recognizing, but you don't necessarily know when the gift becomes clearly apparent to you. I mean, you don't know when the genie's necessarily standing in front of you saying, okay, you've got this. I think, the genius in people is you've got to take time, sometimes years or decades, to figure out what it is. I think some of our genius is attracting people to the brands we're building, providing opportunities to others who want to build something special along with us. I think our power of getting free press, our ability to get people excited about a vision and attempt the impossible. Walt Disney said it's kind of fun to do the impossible. And that's something we try and do constantly. So I think that genius is there, that it gets uncovered slowly and surely when you spend time focused on it, trying to understand what your strengths are. Marcus Buckingham often writes in his books about playing to your strengths. Don't spend wasted time trying to improve your weaknesses. If you're not a good singer, don't, just give up and move on to something else and try and figure out, what is it? What is your gift? What are you naturally strong at? And focus on those gifts.
And what do you think it was that enabled you to see like 1-800-GOT-JUNK and see it before anyone else did, right? Like you did it before someone else said, I'm going to create a, empire based around junk removal. How did you see it before?
Yeah, for years I had this junk removal business and I ran it with great care towards customer experience. I think what I saw before anyone else is, why is everybody just doing this with a beat up old pickup truck, no uniforms, they're not clean cut, they're not professional. I saw the opportunity of revolutionizing a very fragmented mom and pop space. And I used to draw parallels with Starbucks. It used to be that Starbucks was mom and pop little coffee shops on every corner. They were all different. A lot of them were dirty. A lot of them didn't care about the customer. But you get a brand like Starbucks. I love coffee and I do love Starbucks, but they come in with a great brand, consistency, a way of doing things with smiley, friendly people. Why not do the same thing to other spaces? And that's what we're doing with all of our O2E brands, taking ordinary businesses, i.e. junk removal, window washing, painting, moving, and make them exceptional through customer experience. I often think entrepreneurs come and they say, I need an idea. There's got to be this lightning in the bottle, Instagram type moment. I don't think it works that way. Find something that's already being done and do it better. Window washing, yet better. Home painting, hey, we paint it in a day. There's something better about that. There's no compromise in quality. We're bringing in people that, that we're not looking for people who start a Wow One Day painting franchise to become painters. We're looking for people that want to be entrepreneurs, business builders, grow and build an empire of their own. They've got to understand how to use a painting brush, and they're going to do that. But, 3 months into the business, boom, you're leading and growing a team of people and building something special.
And is it public any new O2E babies being birthed anytime soon or joining the family?
No O2E pregnancies out there right now.
Okay.
It's one of those things where we will absolutely have more brands. I think 4 brands. We're busy right now. We've got our hands full. There's things we're trying to figure out. But certainly brand 5, 6. Couldn't even tell you what they are because I've got a list of ideas that we've looked at for years, but there's nothing, that we're really focused on right now other than making sure that all 4 of our brands are healthy, performing well, and that we're taking full advantage of their potential.
I like your analogy of the Starbucks to 1-800-GOT-JUNK because I knew when I called, you were going to get a brand that was going to show up. They were accountable. They were professional. They were uniformed. And even now, you stay open till midnight, right? It's like this amazing it's almost like a comfort you bring. And same thing with Starbucks. Like I have comfort knowing that I'm going to go into any Starbucks and it's going to be the same, right? They're going to have similarities and there's accountability there. It's pretty cool what you've been able to do.
Yeah, I think we're in a world where we want predictability. There's so much uncertainty in this world right now, and probably always will be, unfortunately, but that's life. And, sometimes something as simple as just a coffee, you go, I'm in the city traveling, I could go across the street to that real independent looking cool coffee shop, or on the other side is Starbucks, and I know it, and I know what I'm getting, and I know how to order a grande Americano with room. And, it's just, there's something predictable about that one part of your day. You know what you're getting consistently every time. And I think that it's the same with our brands. People want to know they can trust us. And that's the number one word people look for as a customer using our brand. And it drives us forward.
And what's the number one thing that like CMOs that you know and work with and maybe agencies that you've worked with, what's one thing that they could learn from you, from a CEO, a founder? What's the thing that the advice that you'd give them?
Advice. I mean, the number one thing to me in this world, in building a business, is find the right people and treat them right. People often say, customer is king or queen, the most important person is the customer. I disagree. The most important person are the people on your team. Take care of them. They will take care of the customer. Then when they take care of the customer, that will take care of the brand, profits, growth, all the things that come from building a business. But it starts with the right people. I think the old CEO handbook is broken. People used to tell people what to do. They'd work them crazy hours. They wouldn't give them a lot of leeway or let them innovate. It doesn't work anymore. You've got to be there to serve your people, take care of your employees. Again, they'll take care of everything else that matters.
Awesome. Well, Brian, I really appreciate you being on the show. This is Brian Scudamore, O2E Brands. You got to check them out online. If you need junk removed, your place painted in a day, you need your gutters or windows cleaned, there's the companies that are set up for you, right? Right there.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. We're having fun, and we feel like we're changing the world by providing not just great services to customers, but creating opportunities for business ownership with people that might not have that idea, or they don't know where to start in running their own business, and they come to us to take advantage of our platform. So it's feel very fortunate, having a ton of fun.
It's really cool, really cool. And I'm not just a interviewer. I've been a user and patron, a user of your services, so I can attest that they were great. So, Brian, this has been really fascinating to just hear your perspective of being a founder and managing this, and even in the years you've been doing this, and you continue to be a leader, I think, in what earned media and PR stands for as you practice what you preach. So thank you for also being courageous in putting out the WTF book. If you haven't picked it up yet, it's on Amazon. You can pick it up. It's amazing, inspiring, fascinating. And again, I find the best learning is from people that are willing to share their failures. So make sure you check that book out. So thanks very much, Brian.
Awesome. A lot of fun. So thanks again for having me, and nice to be on a podcast with a local guy.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next time on The Marketing Jam.